What's up, listeners? It's Andrea. Today, we hang with a real-life physicist. We dive pretty deep into Wesley Crusher's sweater choices, and we ask the question, what is a Targ? The answer to that and more, coming up.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the #1 place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
And I'm Andrea. Today we are reviewing Season 1, Episode 5, Where No One Has Gone Before. This episode was written by Diane Duane and Michael Reeves. It was directed by Rob Bowman, and the star date, which we know means nothing, was 4/12/63.1. And today we have a special guest. We have our friend, PJ Brennan, who is a physics teacher, and he's going to explain perfectly for all of us how all of the magic on the show works.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Welcome, PJ. That's right. We're going to talk about the science of science fiction, and it's going to be awesome.
It doesn't exist.
Andrea, it doesn't exist. Andrea, do you want to give us a little bit of the backstory, set up this episode for us?
Yes, it's a little bit of a long one, but here we go. So Mr. Kaczynski is a Starfleet propulsion expert who plans to run tests on the warp engines to improve their efficiency. With Kaczynski as his assistant, an alien from Tau Alpha C known as the Traveler. The test quickly goes awry when the Enterprise speeds up, surpassing the known capabilities of warp engines. Captain Picard orders the ship stopped, and the crew finds themselves on the far side of the M33 galaxy. He asks Kaczynski to redo the process to return home, and the Enterprise again experiences a burst of speed, and when it stops, the crew cannot determine their position. They have reached the outer rim of the universe where thoughts shape reality. That's a long one.
Ooh, this is exciting. This is going to get juicy.
It is. So, I love this episode. What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, let's start with our special guest, PJ.
I was very surprised just because being a Season 1 episode, I was not looking forward to watching this one at all. When I rewatched the show, I almost always start at Season 2. So I was
That's what I did
happy.
Too.
But this was solid. Even though I spent the first 15 minutes trying to figure out what I knew Kaczynski from before realizing he was Monk's therapist on that Tony Shalhoub show.
That's where I know him from.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's where I recognize his face.
Yes, so he had more less gray hair, but I'm I know this guy from something.
And that's the only thing, right?
I guess. I think he's just one of those guys that's been on things for years and then just plops down every once in a while.
You just know his face. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Traveler is actually played by Eric Menyuk, who was an attorney and got into acting and then retired from acting and is now an attorney who deals with special education rights for students, for special needs kids, which I think is pretty, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So he was on this show 3 times as the Traveler. And then he was kind of that same thing as Kaczynski. He bounced around and then ended up retiring from acting, which I think that's pretty cool. I mean, he retrained as an attorney and then went back into it. So the man has got some smarts. He knows what he wants to do, which I think is pretty
skills.
Cool. Yeah. Absolutely.
So can we talk about the Traveler for a second?
Yes, please.
When the episode first started, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the Traveler episode. I still remember this episode from when I was a kid because I remember it was so fanciful, right? Because we're used to seeing, so far in Season 1, we're not used to a whole lot of great stuff.
Nope.
But they are going to different worlds and meeting different aliens. And this time, we're not just exploring an alien culture or something, which usually is savage and barbaric so far in Season 1. Instead, we're exploring thought and reality. And I thought that was super interesting. And that's why this character in this episode really stuck out to me over the years.
Yeah, I love this episode. This is we have Encounter at Farpoint, which we said was a soup sandwich, just a total mess. And then we have The Naked Now, a total mess plus orgies. And then you have that really racist episode. And this is the first episode that I watched and I went, this is the TNG that I grew up loving.
It felt like Star Trek.
Thank you, PJ. It totally felt like Star Trek. They are truly explorers. They've gone places they haven't been to before or weren't supposed to get to by whatever time they're in right now. And now they have these opportunities and these problems how do we get home? Where the hell are we? do we even take time to explore? Because who do we report our findings to? Like this
people yelling at Wesley.
Yes, we've got people yelling at Wesley. We've got Troy doing something useful, and I was like, "Yeah, Troy, okay." Yes. She was like, "I sense nothing
Troy
from the
not
traveler."
Doing something useful.
What's that?
Troy's empathic abilities only last long enough to be dramatically useful because it's always like, "Oh, I can sense this. Oh, I can't sense this," and then there's like dramatic music.
And she's like
Troy
back in the background.
Sense something. That's when things have gone bad.
Yes. Well,
that's how you know.
It's when she comes to the front and goes, "I'm anxious because everybody else is anxious," and then she goes back into the box. That's it. Like, they just put her
there
right
was
back.
At the start of the episode, we see yet another chief engineer welcoming
Argyle.
the traveler on, and I was like,
he's on Parks and Rec, actually.
That's hilarious.
What? Wait a second. I've seen like every episode of Parks and Rec a million times. Where is he?
You remember the guy that he caught Leslie and Ben kissing at the Harvest Festival?
Is that Argyle?
And like that's Argyle.
Oh my God, I'm having this super geeky moment.
Half of my notes were, I recognize that guy. And the other half were, wait, what? Like, why is Geordi wearing red? Why is Geordi the chief engineer? And most
why
of the
is he on the bridge?
It's season 2. Just wait till season 2. It's fine.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Geordi does not belong on the bridge. He's going to change positions for those of you who have not seen the show.
Yeah, no, he does not. All right. So jumping right in. So Kaczynski is coming aboard, and the scene or the show basically opens with Riker and Picard arguing on the bridge. Or Riker, maybe they're not arguing, but Riker believes very, very strongly that Kaczynski's a fraud. And they're having this sort of elevated discussion, and I'm just thinking, shouldn't you be doing this? Debate. Shouldn't you be doing this in the ready room or in like the lounge or something? I mean, because Riker is getting like sweaty. He's getting frustrated, and he's like, "Why aren't you listening to me? This guy's a fucking joke." And Picard's like, "I don't know. I'm sure it's fine."
Picard's like, Starfleet recommends them. Do it, and you're going to be the one. To welcome him on board since you don't like it. It's just like that's a little petty,
passive aggressive. That's like
not necessarily the Picard we all know and love showing up in this first scene.
No. But so Kaczynski comes aboard, and I got to tell you, the like detail nerd in me was bothered because he's part of Starfleet, but he never wears a comm badge. His insignia, he doesn't have pips, which are the technical name for the little dots. He has like a weird little square. I'm like, what the hell is this? Are you like a contractor? Like,
does he have a rank?
Maybe.
I don't remember.
He might not have a rank.
If he has a rank, is he just? Yeah, he might just be like an independent contractor.
I think he is like a contractor. He's like a specialist, right? That's how he's presenting himself. He's like, I am the warp field specialist, and I'm coming to each ship and doing magical things on the ship. So I don't know if he even has a commission.
I'm going to yell at everybody, and this is my weird gray friend that I found. Come with me.
Yes. Which apparently, by the way, the Traveler. Okay, so Eric Menyuk, who plays the Traveler, it was reported that he had to be in makeup for like 3 to 4 hours each day that they shot, because he has all those prosthetics. And they did, they had him have like 3 fingers, and he hated those like clunky, junky fingers so much that he tried to hide them as much as he could. The
Nightcrawler hands, I loved those. Him typing just looked so weird.
Yes. When Kaczynski says, I'm going to have him input the preliminary calculations because he could do it faster than any human can, I was like, what? He has like less fingers. What do you mean? Like
I'm going to say that's false. I'm going to call scientific BS on that one. 3 big clunky fingers are not as efficient as like a couple more fingers.
It's like
probably if he had like 7 or 12 fingers, it'd be like,
that would
on
make
each
more
hand.
sense.
Then you'd be like, yeah, he could do it.
But
faster.
He has just basically giant bratwurst sausages attached to his palms, and he's just typing things in to a very small little keypad, which makes no sense.
Well, luckily for them, they don't have like actual buttons. Everything is a big touch screen. So
that is true.
Mean, imagine him trying to text. It'd be awful. It'd be awful.
It would be like getting a text from my mom, which is just a bunch of like random letters and like emojis that don't belong there, and like symbols from another keyboard. And I go,
autocorrect is very big in the Star Trek universe.
There you go. That's it.
That's really why they don't crash that often.
They really nailed it down. Okay, so PJ, they start this test, and they are supposed to do warp 1.5, and they end up going to the M33 galaxy, which by their calculations is 2.7 million light years away from the Milky Way. Explain. We're just going to put this all on you.
I always feel like such a killjoy when talking about stuff like this, because it's always just like, that can't, no, you can't. Because the whole basis of Star Trek is predicated on the fact that they can go faster than the speed of light, which unfortunately is just, you can't.
Yes,
the speed of light is a universal speed limit. You can approach it, but you can't reach it. And even if you were going really, really fast, the rules of time start to break down. Well, they don't break down, but time dilation starts kicking in. So if they actually went, even if you're going like 99% the speed of light, the amount of time that passes for anyone on that ship versus anyone on Earth, you're going to go back and everyone's going to be old and dead.
Yeah. So, yeah. Which, I mean, when
that is a little bit disappointing.
When
it's a killjoy.
Shereese is confirming we're not going to have listeners. We won't be having PJ back. Ruined all of our Star Trek dreams. I want to go warp 9.9. Damn it. So correct me if I'm wrong. We're calling back to my physics days. As you approach the speed of light, your mass increases as well, which increases the amount of power you need to propel that mass. Is that right? Or am I?
Yeah, so with the amount of energy that you need to move faster and faster, it starts all kind of linear. Like if you double your energy, so if you double your energy, then you quadruple your speed. But as you get closer and closer to the speed of light, it starts hitting kind of a wall. So like you're pouring in more energy and like you go 98% the speed of light, 99% the speed of light, but then it's like 99.9, 99.99, 99.999. Like you can keep going faster and faster, but it's kind of like the thing where if you go half the distance from here to the wall and then you cut that distance in half and then you cut that distance in half, you never actually reach the wall.
Yes.
So you can keep going faster and faster with more and more energy, but you never actually reach the speed of light.
Well, you heard it here, people. Kaczynski is a fraud, and I guess so is all of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So
we still love it.
But it's still a very fun episode.
It is. It is a fun episode. It's the first one that feels real. So they get to the M33 galaxy, and they're like, should we poke around or not? And then, oh, by the way,
it's Star Trek. Of course they're going to poke around.
The
prime directive only exists in order to say, just this once we're going to ignore it. We have to follow the prime directive.
Yes.
Except for today and maybe tomorrow.
The prime directive is a very strong suggestion. Like
yes, it is.
That's all.
So they're going warp 10 point whatever they're doing. They're going beyond their capabilities. And they start realizing that something is going wrong. And Picard makes this horrible call and he says, reverse engines. And I'm going, what?
Excuse you.
You're like, can we slow down
That's
first?
A baller move.
No. Okay, let me tell you a little story. Once upon a time, the gas pedal on my car got stuck when I was like, I was going to say a kid, but I was a legal driver. I was like 16 or 17. And I freaked out because it got stuck to the floor and I couldn't stop accelerating. And luckily I was like on a pretty empty stretch of road, but I was in a city. So I was starting to freak out. So I jammed the car into neutral and get it to stop. And I pull over and luckily nobody got hurt, whatever. But you at worst, you go into neutral, buddy. You don't just jam into reverse and
you survived and so did the Enterprise.
What's that?
You survived and so did the Enterprise.
Apparently so. My card says reverse engines, question mark, exclamation point.
What?
That did seem to me like a kind of bad idea. Like I hear stop, like let's not keep going because we don't know where we're going.
Or slow down.
But I thought, is there a slow down button on the Enterprise? There really isn't. It's just reverse engines and go forward. They don't really do like, I mean, they do slow. They only slow when they're going forward.
They can do impulse power. Yeah.
But they don't go like.
That's kind of the same thing. In order to slow down in space, it is pretty much just whatever way you're going to. Yeah, whatever way you're going to be pushing yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because like when we do the brakes on Earth, we're able to create friction between the car and the brakes, and then the brakes and the tires, and then the tires and the ground. But in space, you don't have any of that. It's just, am I pushing myself forward, backward, up, down, left? There is no up, down, but am I pushing, stern, bow, forward, aft, whatever. So pretty much the only way you can slow down is by firing something to push you in the opposite direction.
That is true.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Well,
I just make a statement here about them going warp 10 point whatever, or warp off the charts, I believe is what Data said.
It's like he's an android. Data was smiling a lot in this episode and just throwing out like, oh, it's off the charts. No, you're an android. You know what the chart is.
It was off the charts on his pad, right? You are the calculations he was reading. It was off those charts. So
get a bigger chart.
Get a bigger chart. Yeah.
So I love this moment when Kaczynski kind of goes, he sort of like puts his hands on his face and just kind of hides as the traveler's face.
He owns up to it surprisingly quickly in this episode. He's I thought it was me, but it clearly wasn't.
It was me. Well, it wasn't.
He clearly has just enough time on the turbo lift between main engineering the bridge to come up with some sort of excuse, because when he shows up to the bridge and he goes, Captain Picard, I mean, what a wonderful day this is for propulsion. I've done it. It was a mistake, but a wonderful mistake. Like, let's all just
day for propulsion.
Let's all just let's all just pretend. Well, so he walks off the bridge. So Picard says, listen, can you do it again? Which, as we all know, any science worth doing has to be replicable. So
agreed.
Can you do it again? Can you get us back? And
or in the words of the Mythbusters, if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And that's exactly what the Traveler and Kaczynski did. They overdid this test here.
Well, I had this moment when I had to pause to look at the frame, because Kaczynski goes, okay, we're going to do it again. And he walks off the bridge, and Picard and Riker and Geordi and Data kind of like all group together and give him this like bitchy, like Mean Girls look, like we don't like him. And Data's face is like the bitchiest face I've ever seen. And I went, can androids even do that? Like, you don't even have.
I like to think that Data saw them being bitchy, and he was trying to act more human. So he's like, "Okay, enact bitchy face," and he just did that.
Yes,
and he nailed it, as he always does.
Oh my god, it was like pure hell.
Like, when Wesley's like, "Oh, he needs a rest. You could do this on your own," and Kaczynski's like, "Hell yeah, I could do it on my own." I'm like, the balls on this guy. And like the Traveler's like, no, I think I should help.
Like, you actually, no, it's okay. You really do need me. Like, it's okay. Well,
it's okay. I'm fine. I'm about to collapse, but I'm totally fine. Let's just do it.
So, all right. So this episode is our first like Wesley Crusher centric episode. This is where we really start to see him. PJ's face.
So I'm thinking PJ's not a fan of Wesley Crusher.
And in fact, like, ugh.
PJ, we forgot to ask you this question. This is an important question for all of our guests that we totally forgot. Who is your favorite character? Because I think we're getting an idea on who your least favorite might be. But who is your favorite character on the show?
My favorite character, and I had the action figure when I was a kid, is Geordi LaForge.
Of course. You are Geordi LaForge.
I had a Geordi LaForge action figure, and my brother had a Data action figure. Those were literally the only toys that we had from the show. We didn't have anything else, but we had those two toys.
Yeah. Tell me why Geordi?
I think as a kid, honestly, I think it was the visor. The visor was awesome.
It was cool.
I loved the visor.
It was really
Cyclops was my favorite X-Man too. So maybe I just really
maybe you just had a thing for like blind characters. Maybe. I don't know.
And we bought my dad for like Christmas when we were like 5 a Picard action figure, and he still has it. Like it's in his bureau drawer at home. He's like, no, I saved this. You guys bought me this when you were 5. I'm keeping this.
Oh, that's really cute.
Don't know what happened to the Geordi one.
All right, so.
Because the types of episodes I usually skip. I skip Wesley episodes. I skip, was it Barclay? He's the guy that...
Barclay.
Yeah, I skip his episodes, and I usually skip episodes where one person notices everything's going wrong on the ship, but nobody else notices that everything's going wrong on the ship.
Really?
Every character has one of those episodes throughout the course of the show. I don't know why I always skip those.
Well, this is one for sure. Like Wesley is like, like the Traveler.
Which is why I was surprised, combining two things that I hate, and I still like the episode.
So your feelings on PJ, your feelings on PJ, your feelings on Wesley, PJ.
Yeah, it's better without him.
Oh,
I think this episode was okay because he's really young in this episode. One of my notes is he's wearing the largest Irish sweater I've ever seen.
Okay.
But it's orange, so I'm guessing he's Irish Protestant. So I don't know.
I wrote Wesley sweater on one of my cards.
Like, it is the largest sweater.
It is, and the sleeves bother me because they start off normal size at the shoulder, and as they go down, they get really big around the elbow and then really tiny again at the wrist. And I went, are we just going to chalk this up to future clothes or like what?
Yeah,
like, I remember it's not future clothes. I wore that sweater like back in like 1987 going to St. Patrick's Day Mass. Like,
well, they were trying
in
that show. They were trying to take current fashion, which remember this was 1993 at this point. They were trying to take fashion that was like from the late 80s and make it futuristic. So everything in the show still kind of looks like late 80s clothes, like the big shoulders and all that stuff. Yeah. So this was their envisioning
collars.
Yes.
Huge collars, yeah.
Yes. I think as well, though, this is, Wesley is the character who he doesn't have any official role on the Enterprise yet. And so he's only wearing civilian clothes. And we don't actually see anybody else in their downtime civilian clothes until later on when you see Captain Picard in his little like silk shorts, when he's reading a book in bed or whatever. But like
we got man skirts in this episode, though.
Yes, you know what? We do see a shorty uniform a couple of times here. PJ, I'm tracking when we finally see the end of the stupid shorty uniform because I hate it so much.
But it was interesting when they're like, you know what? It was one of the sexist things from the original series, and they're like, well, we'll just put it on men too. And
yes.
It's kind of progressive. I'm not sure if it was the best way to do it, but that kind of worked.
I agree. I actually agree with you. I do like that they didn't restrict it to just women, because in the future, I guess they've moved past that kind of stuff. Hopefully,
wear a skirt.
Yeah, but I don't like it because your uniform is supposed to be functional, and it's just not. Like. Yeah. There's no pockets. There's no.
So it wasn't functional for women either. I think that's the big idea that we have here. Like wearing a skirt. I mean, it's just kind of like all the crime shows, right? Where the military detectives are wearing 6-inch heels, and you're like, you can't really chase down a suspect in 6-inch heels. Like that's just not really practical. So I agree with you, PJ. I like that they're trying to mix up gender roles a little bit with fashion. It just didn't quite hit the mark, right? It didn't look good. It wasn't functional, but it was a great idea.
When did they go from just wearing like the onesie uniforms to having like the actual jackets? Because I was looking for the Picard maneuver where every time he sits down, he always pulls it down.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we talked about that in a previous episode, so our listeners might remember. But yes, when he means business, he stands up and he like pulls his shirt down a little bit. And that's when he's really getting mad or he's about to like get things done because he pulls that down. Yeah. Okay. So back to Wesley. So this is a Wesley.
So to answer your question, PJ, we don't remember.
Oh no!
When he starts wearing the jackets.
I'm sorry.
It's season 2. Probably season 2.
I think it's season 2. I actually originally thought that it was season 2, but I think it was actually like midway between season 2 and 3. And the reason was those uniforms had to be so tight in order to have a clean look that it basically pulled the actors like down into a hunch. So when you had to stand up, it was this like, I think like heavy neoprene. So it's like basically you're acting in a wetsuit for like 13 hours a day. And they were like, we've just had enough and we're not doing this anymore. So they kept those like one-piece uniforms for like background players and extras, but the main cast all got like the 2-piece, which I thought looked so much better. And they have the collars that stand up, which I really like. So that's a somewhat answer. But all right. So the Traveler and Wesley have this like connection, which I really like because I feel like everybody is shut up Wesleying. And he's like, no, I actually.
That was in my notes. He's like, I have a name. And Picard's like, we know.
We know what it is. Shut up,
we choose
boy.
not to respect you. Yeah, we're choosing to call you the boy. We know very well what your name is, and none of us care. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Captain, sir.
Yes.
You're setting the tone for everybody here, buddy.
Yeah, no, you are setting the bar, and everybody else is like, oh, we can all shit on Wesley? Great, let's do that. He did save you guys before in The Naked Now by like fixing, that whole piece of Star.
But that was like episodes ago.
Yeah, so nobody remembers. No, he's back to being annoying. But I do like that the Traveler, who obviously, like, I would just say knows things, seems to think that Wesley is special, which I actually really like. I like that in this episode. So they try
to set up a lot for Wesley that never really ever pays. Like, he's this prodigy and he's going to change. He's Mozart. He's going to change the world. And like, if you've actually watched the series, he gets into a hazing incident in college and then really nothing else after that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something I read in one of these articles. I don't remember which one, so unfortunately I can't link it. But I read in one of these articles that the original idea for his character, that people are guessing, right? This is not what Gene Roddenberry said, but that people are guessing, is that he was supposed to be this like perfect person, and he was just supposed to excel at everything and just be so amazing, and that it was supposed to be like a self-portrait of what Gene Roddenberry wished he was, or something.
Christ.
I don't know if any of that's actually true. So that
I'm eye rolling so hard right now.
But, yeah, sorry. But so I think what happened is just like the writers and just like the storyline, it was like, yeah, this character is too perfect. He's not relatable. And so we don't want to make this the Wesley show. So that might be one of the reasons why it never, like, none of that paid off, because then it would have just been like, he's so perfect and he's so great and he can never do anything wrong and he's so smart and that we can't relate to him as humans, and we just don't care, and everybody stops watching. So I think they just kind of toned that down a little bit and try to focus on all the.
We really want to punch him. Like, I don't know why, but I really want to punch him.
I love to. Oh my God. Well, I don't know how old Will Wheaton is or was, like, at the time of this filming, but I think I was just like a year or two, maybe 3 years, like, younger than his character was at the time of the airing. So I just, every time he came on screen as a little girl, I just had like heart eyes for him. It's like, he's cute and he's smart, and he's just, and his hair is so great. Like, I totally had heart eyes.
I was like, oh my gosh, it's Wesley. Like, he was totally like the boy band member before boy bands were a thing.
Yes.
Like, that's the picture that I have in my mind. So every time Wesley comes on screen, even now, I'm just like, oh, it's Wesley.
Okay, so apparently the writers wrote his character in order to like rope in younger viewers, to like make something relatable for the younger viewers. But
clearly worked for you guys.
It did. It totally worked for us. But I think that we are in the minority because they made him so like unrelatable. Like, he just was always in, like, always knew the answer to everything all the time. He only hung out with like adults. It didn't actually like play, I think, the way that the creators had originally thought of that. So Shereese and I got heart eyes every time we saw Wesley Crusher on the screen. But
apparently most people hated him and hated that character. So that was a surprise to me.
I was like, to dump on him.
I mean, if we're talking hard eyes, Tasha Yar.
Totally. Oh my God.
She's pretty cool.
That's the thing that I love about like these first couple episodes, at least that, we get a very brief period where we get to enjoy Tasha Yar, and I like her a lot.
Yeah. I feel like in my memory, I always think Tasha Yar was only in, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, Tasha Yar does end up leaving the show. But in my mind, I always remember like, oh, Tasha was only in like 3 or 4 episodes. But actually, she's in almost the entire season 1.
Yeah.
She's in almost like every single episode until the end. It's like she doesn't leave the show until the very end of the season. So I don't know why in my mind it was so brief, but she's actually around. Like, she's
because
there. She's a pretty main character.
Season 2.
That's true.
That's why. Okay, that makes sense. I always start at season 2.
The thing for me about Tasha Yar is I wonder how bad she felt that things were on set or in that working environment, because her character was killed off in episode 22 in the first season. And there were only 25 episodes in that first season. I say only, but there were 25. Like, she didn't even want to last like the last 3. She was like really, really done apparently. Which I did find a really cool, like little like mini documentary that William Shatner made called Chaos on the Bridge. And I'll link it into our website, where he basically talked about how uber controlling Gene Roddenberry was and how awful it was to work on the first season of the show, where a huge number of writers quit in the first season. Like 30 writers left the show over the course of season 1. He was like famous for throwing out scripts like hours before they were going to start shooting that episode. Like, it was just absolutely like chaotic. And he had this rule that, and I never thought of it until I watched it on the documentary, and I was like, oh yeah, he made a rule that none of the main characters could ever have conflict with each other unless they were like possessed by some like alien, you know, force or something. And then they could kind of like fight amongst themselves. But you could never have any kind of dissension among the characters on the show, which as a writer, that's where all the like drama comes from. Yeah. So to be like
some utopia or something, right?
Exactly. Where it's like, no, the characters would never fight, which is like, well, you're living on a ship for years. Like, of course there's going to be conflict at some point, but he made that a rule. And so he made it incredibly difficult.
We're all wearing uncomfortable onesies. We're going to get mad at each other.
We're going to get a little fussy. But yeah, no. So it was apparently like by what I've read, and I'll link that, that cool little documentary. And I don't know if it was a short documentary or if I just saw a small portion of it, but what I did find, I'll link onto our site. But it was really, really interesting. As William Shatner is interviewing these writers, you could see that there were things that they wanted to say, but couldn't. They were like measuring their words very carefully because apparently it was just awful the first season. Yeah. So who knows? So I'm sorry that we had to miss out on more Tasha Yar, but I could see why you loved her. I mean, she's gorgeous and capable and she's
amazing.
She's amazing.
Kicking ass, yeah.
Yeah, she did. She kicked ass.
Yeah, she's amazing. And that sucks that was rough. Somehow, though, miraculously, all the other cast members were able to make it all the way through all 7 seasons, which is pretty incredible because not many shows last for 7 seasons. They don't lose anybody. They do a little bit of exchanging.
Space Nine? Yeah.
No, they don't. They don't lose Worf. Worf is still there until the very end. They're all still there until the very end. Okay. Deep Space Nine started as TNG was ending. So there was just a little bit of overlap, and then they cancel the show. So they don't lose anybody. They actually gain a few characters as we go on, and they make it all the way through.
There's one thing, it's the only thing that I've been thinking about since I watched this episode. I just want to talk about the Klingon Targ. Because
I put that in my notes.
All I wanted, it is all I've been thinking about because I love that they lit their solution for creating this alien being was just to glue spikes onto an actual boar.
I saw that. That was so awesome. Because they mention Targs all the time. They mention Targs all the time in the show. I'm not sure how many times in this show, but they mentioned it a lot in Star Trek Voyager, which you guys know that I'm obsessed with also.
Yeah.
And I was always like, what is a Targ? Because one of the characters in Voyager, her name's B'Elanna, she's part Klingon, and she's like, she makes this comment to one of the characters. Yeah, and she's like, you kind of, it looked really cute on you. You looked like a speckled Targ. And I was like, what is a Targ? Like, what could it be? What could it look like? And then when Worf is like, oh, it's a Targ, my pet from when I was a kid, I was like, that's what it is. That's all I needed. I was so excited to finally put a picture in my mind of what a Targ could possibly be because they never describe it. They never say what it actually looks like.
Interesting. This episode starts to show us a little bit of character backstory, which I really like. Like you see the Targ, Tasha Yar sees her cat, and then suddenly she's back on her home planet.
That rape awful.
Which by the way,
Jesus Christ.
I know. Okay,
and she's like, "Poor little kitty, runaway little kitty." You're just like, "Oh gosh, this scene just got even. Could it even get worse? It did get worse because she's protecting a little kitty when she's about to be raped. Like this is horrible."
Well, I'm surprised ratings wise that they even allowed the word rape to air on TV, because I thought for censors they probably wouldn't allow that. But yeah, she just threw out the word rape gang right front and center, and I went, whoa. And then we see Picard's mother as well, and he calls her maman, which I think is so sweet because it's French and it's very sweet. But like,
I thought that was sweet. Maman. And she's got that awesome tea set, so we've got a little tea set here going on. We've got a lot of different tea sets in the show. Andrea and I discovered.
And she's got an actual French accent because Picard's always on that border. But it's like, are you British or French? Like,
so okay, so it was somewhat explained. It was somewhat explained in the pilot, but just in passing. He has a British accent, but Data mentions, when Q puts him on trial, and he says something about how the French language has now become obsolete by this point. And Picard goes, I beg your pardon. Like he takes umbrage.
Yeah.
And so he's a little pissy about that. But yeah, so and
that's actually in the TNG Bible as well, is that Gene Roddenberry specifically wrote about Picard's character that he is French, that he has a slight accent, and only when he gets mad does his accent come out stronger, as more Frenchy sounding. And it also says he's very he defends the French language very passionately. Like that's part of who the character is supposed to be, which I thought was hilarious that level of detail was in there.
And when he does get frustrated, in episode 4, when he gets frustrated, at one point he says, merde, which means shit in French, which I think is fantastic. I was like, oh, he swears in French. And he says it sort of under his breath.
That one.
Yeah, he says merde. And I was like, ooh. Anyway, so we see Picard and his mother in her awesome, like, imperial tea set, which I'm a total tea snob, PJ. So I saw that and I was like, ooh, cool. But now we're in the outer rim of the universe. Like, they have tried the test again. It's gone horribly awry. And they're in this place that looks like snowflakes are kind of falling all over them, which I love this part of the episode. Like, now we're in a place where thought shapes your reality. And we see that, like, ballerina that's dancing around. I did have a funny little observation. The man who was playing in the string quartet, when he realizes that he's not actually playing with them, he sits back and you realize he's drinking alone. And I went, what a rough time to be a synthaholic. You can't even like fight this lonely feeling. You know, you've got some synthahol and you're drinking alone. I just thought that's terrible.
So this whole thing, this whole idea of, you know, your thoughts become reality, that later on Picard's like, all right, everybody, thoughts become reality. Control your thoughts. Be very careful. Be very careful about what you think, which I feel like it's kind of like, didn't that also happen in Ghostbusters, where they're like, control your thoughts. Whatever you think will kill us. And then it's like the second you say
Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, the second you say control your thoughts, don't think of anything bad, it's like, poof, you're going to think of something bad, right?
Don't think about the giant pink elephant in the room. And you're like, well, that's all I can think about now.
Exactly true.
When he comes across that man who is, you know, fighting this fire, or like he's kind of trapped by a fire in his mind, Picard goes, put it out in your mind. And the guy eventually puts it out in his mind. Picard, ever the mushy, emotional man, goes, now get to your station and only think about your task. And the man goes, yes, sir. Like, sir,
I love that.
You thought you were going to die in a freaking fire 1 second ago, and you're all hopped up on your duty a second later.
Yeah, look, we don't have time for PTSD. The ship is in trouble. Get back to your station. We'll deal with your trauma later. And at this point, Troy is not the ship's counselor. She's only Picard's counselor, so we don't have anybody to help you. But right now, you need to get back to your station, sweaty and stressed out. When we get back home to the Alpha Quadrant, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, we'll deal with your burns and all of that. But right now, and Picard is just like zero sympathy. Well, he's Mr. Duty. I mean, we know that. I do have a nerdy little fact. When they get to that outer rim, that uncharted space, they say that they have their navigational charts tell them that they have traveled to the outer edge of the universe, which is 1 billion light years away. I did a little deep dive because, you know, I love the deep dives. And the observable universe that we can observe from Earth now with all of our technology is 46.5 billion light years. We can observe a sphere of the universe around us 46.5 billion light years away. So I went, oh, they just arbitrarily came up with a number. But then I thought maybe in 1987, 1 billion light years was maybe the only observable universe that we had at that time, you know, because technology has sped up so much since then. So that was my little deep dive where I was like, how far is the observable universe from Earth right now?
Star Trek is no place for your science.
I'm an actual scientist.
A billion sounds good. So they put 1 billion in the script.
They were like, 1 million? No, better make that a B.
No, billion.
Make that a B. But I just thought maybe they actually, they didn't have internet then, but it's like maybe they looked it up and they're like, the only observable universe we have is just shy of 1 billion. So we're going to just pop them 1 billion light years away. Anyway. So that was my that's my nerd alert moment.
I'm going to go with PJ that they were probably just like, billion sounds good. It sounds really far. Yep, sure does. Let's keep it moving.
Totally far.
Yeah.
No one was going to fact check them.
Totally far sounds right, because this was the 80s.
Joe in the script department was like, well, what about 1 trillion? Like, shut up, Joe. No.
And then that's why Joe quit. He was one of the 30 who quit in season 1.
Exactly.
He's not feeling heard. Gene.
And I like how they even think that the universe has an edge, right? That kind of goes back to our old school, almost back to episode 1, Encounter at Farpoint Station, where Q is showing up as this like old school, you know, captain of a ship. And it's kind of a throwback to that, right? Because back in the day, people thought the Earth was flat, and they thought that if you were on the ocean, you went far enough, wherever the edge was, where the horizon was, you would just fall off, right? There was an end to the world, and you just, who knows what, you know, there'd be monsters. And it's kind of like a throwback to that same idea here. Instead of it being a sphere that's actually continuing forever, like it's a big circle, there's no end. They're thinking of the universe as having an edge as well, except for instead of falling off, you go into some weird, crazy hallucinogenic trips.
Yeah, you're like in some weird space.
Yeah, like the original show was more like a Western in space. It's all pioneers going off and doing stuff. This one's definitely more on the nautical Horatio Hornblower, we're on the ship. Because the one thing that I noticed in this episode was I have never heard a boatswain's whistle many times.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay. This is the first time in the entire Next Generation series, one of the few times, but the first time that we hear the bosun's whistle. And I don't know if you know this, PJ, but you may, but you're also just so smart. You might just be very well read. But Gene Roddenberry wrote Captain Picard's character to model Horatio Hornblower, who was a 18th century fictional like admiral and like explorer. Yeah. So when Gene cast Patrick Stewart as Captain Picard, he said, I would recommend reading Horatio Hornblower stories so that you kind of get that background. And to which Stewart said, no worries, I read them all as a teenager. So he already was like well-versed. He's like,
it's Patrick Stewart. He's on top of it. Don't worry about it.
Yes, he's Sir Patrick. I don't know if he was Sir Patrick yet, but he was. Yeah, no,
he was not Sir Patrick yet.
But the man knows his crap. Yeah, he's always going to be the captain of my heart, sure. But yeah, so he was written based on this fictional admiral, Horatio Hornblower. All right, but anyway, oh my gosh, I digress. So the Traveler now has to get them back, and Picard uses the bosun whistle, which I love. That's like such a geeky Star Trek moment for me. And he says we need to center all of our thoughts, on this Traveler. What are your thoughts about that?
So one of the things that I say in my class a lot is because my class regularly just devolves into talking about movies and stuff as opposed to me actually teaching anything. And I always said that there's two types of things that I don't like in movies and TV shows. I don't like it when man was the monster the entire time, and I don't like it when love was the answer all along.
Wonder Woman.
Like the end of Interstellar with like stuff, the bookcase or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hated that so much.
I was like, okay, like focus on the. It was good. I mean, it was more of a fantasy element than the sci-fi thing, but I liked it because again, the whole thing is fantasy. But I like, he's like, listen, if you can't focus on your duty, just focus on this one guy. That's all he.
Yeah, I like that. That was actually really tactical. And that's the piece that they never say in these shows when they're like, that. I mean, that's the piece that they didn't say in Ghostbusters, right? To say like, hey, whatever we think of is going to kill us. So don't think of anything. Or if you need to think of something, and give them some kind of option that's not as deathy, right?
Easier to think of something than thinking of nothing.
Right. So absolutely. I do like that he added that piece of being like, control your thoughts. And if you can't control your thoughts, just think good thoughts for the Traveler. Just think healing and happiness. Just think that. So then people are like, okay, there's something I can actually do because you're telling me not to worry and it's freaking me out.
Yeah, that's all I can do.
I got 15 Targs running around the bridge right now.
We've got Ray Gaines going through every level, ballerinas. Like, yeah, just tell me to think happy thoughts about the Traveler, and that is something I can do. I actually had a question for you guys, and we're also going to do this poll on Instagram because I want to know what you guys think, who are out there listening. What would your thoughts be? Like, what would come to life if that happened right now? Right? If your thoughts shape reality for the next... Now. Yes, if we were on the Enterprise and for the next, 12 minutes, your thoughts would become reality. What would happen? Would it be a good story, a bad story?
Oh my gosh.
God, see, because now all I can think of is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's entirely possible that all of Bayonne, New Jersey would be destroyed by the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Gosh, I don't know what, honestly, that's a big question. I really don't know what I would think. If I got the bosun's whistle order from Picard saying, think good thoughts about the Traveler, that's what I would be. I would just be sending sort of like good thoughts his way. But if I were in...
But the moment before he gave that instruction,
oh my God,
just like hallucinating and tripping on stuff.
I feel like I would be having like intergalactic laser tag or something. I would be not productive at all. And I would be like the ballerina where they have to go, get a hold of yourself. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd probably be like accepting an award from like the Grammys or Oscars or some other award that I have no business accepting. And I'd be like, thank you to everyone. I'd like to thank the little people.
So before they get back home, which spoiler alert, they do, the Traveler pulls Picard aside and tells him how special Wesley is, which I'm guessing PJ didn't love that so much, but I got all sorts of feels. I was like, oh, somebody is like recognizing that this one kid is like special. And so they get back, they get back to where they were supposed to be. And then Wesley gets called up to the bridge and gets his famous promotion to acting ensign, which I gotta say, I got a little like misty-eyed over. Like, I think it's so sweet. And they really tug at that heartstring because they have like this music kind of swelling in the background. And this kid is like, all of his dreams are being realized. But Picard is still being a dick, even though he's like throwing him a bone.
Because he doesn't like children, and he needs to be clear on that.
So Wesley's kind of like a commissioned officer now. Do they have non-commissioned officers on, like, because they don't have...
So he wasn't. By making him an acting ensign, they said like you don't have a commission. They told him that. Then they said as soon as we are able, you need to apply to the academy.
Yeah.
So that was the instruction. They were like, we're making you an acting ensign, which means you will have bridge duties, you will wear a uniform, but you're not going to have any actual commission because you have to earn that.
Yeah.
We'll go to Starfleet with Tom Paris, but he's not Tom Paris.
That's right.
Yes.
Don't call him Tom Paris.
Don't you dare call him Tom Paris.
He's going to change his name at the end of the episode.
So loved that. I was like, is that Tom? That's totally Tom. Love that.
Well, I think it's pretty funny that in an earlier episode, The Naked Now, Wesley saves the ship from complete and total annihilation, and they just forget about it. But this Traveler is like, hey, you got something special here. And all of a sudden they're like, all right, let's promote him. It's like, wait a second.
It was a very sweet moment.
It was. So I think we actually ended the episode on like a very positive note. Like, Wesley's got, he's sitting there. He's now like part of the team, which, was what he always wanted anyway. He has a reason to be on the bridge, which I don't know about you, but I would kill to be on that bridge.
Oh yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yeah. So Will Wheaton has a show. I don't know if he's still doing episodes. But he's got this show on YouTube where he plays games. He just plays different games with like celebrities. They just play board games, and it's awesome. There's this one episode where he's playing with a couple of celebrities, and the way that the game goes, because there are all these like, these very cerebral or like detailed kind of board games, right? It's not like Go Fish. But anyways, there's one game where you have to kind of like persuade other people in the game to exchange their pieces or to give you resources. So two people are trying to persuade this one guy, and Will is one of the guys who's trying to persuade them to partner with him. And so Will starts going on and on about the show, and he's like, if you partner with me, I'll let you go to the holodeck. And we're also, and he starts laying it on thick. He's like, and we'll go to the ready room. We'll see where Picard actually sits. You'll get to be on everything. And the guy's like, really? Oh my gosh. And then he gives him like everything. And the other guy's like, man, that totally sucks. That's not even fair. Your show's not real. Like, it was so funny. And he was like, this is the first time he was like, and then he turns to Will and he's like, that's the most passionate I've ever heard you talk about your own show. Like, you've never even talked about it like that. And Will just turns to him and he's like, when I first started, I was joking, but as I kept talking, I thought, man, this actually sounds really fun. I kind of want to do this.
Well, I don't know
if you love Will Wheaton.
I want to play board games with Will Wheaton. I want to talk about
absolutely.
Me too. Will, can we be on your show and you'll be on our show? Let's do a show swap.
Yeah. Let's do.
Well, although we're probably going to suck at those board games. Just so you know, PJ will probably crush it. I'm pretty sure I will suck.
All right. So I think that we have actually done it. We've done where no one has gone before.
We've wrapped it. I do have a question though.
Yes.
And I don't know, maybe you can go back and check this, Andrea, or maybe PJ, at the end of this episode, Picard says engage. And I was like, is that the first time that he said that during the season? I think it is. Because I think in episode 1, he says something else like go or go ahead or something. He said something else when at the end of episode 1 and then at the end of episode 2. Ship go boom. Yeah. At the end of episode 2, they end with a little moral of the story, like, well, as long as we're together. It's something weird.
He
doesn't give any commands. Yeah, love was the answer all along. So, or was that? Yeah, I think it was at the end of episode 2. Yeah, it was something like. Actually, no, it was about them being drunk. It was like as long as we are in control of ourselves, then everything will be okay. It was something like that. But it was a moral of the story, so they didn't have an ending. And I feel like this is the first time he says engage.
Oh, it might be. It might be. I'll have to look that up.
Because when I heard it, I was like, he said it. He said it. I was all excited.
Wow. See, that I don't have the answer to that, but you know what? One of our listeners might, because TNG listeners are super fans just like us. So they may know the answer to that.
Let us know if I'm wrong on that, but let us know if I'm right on that too, because I love being right.
Just let us know.
Send us an email at info@thetngpodcast.com and let us know if you believe also that that's the first time Picard says engage, because if so, that is a historical moment.
It really is. It's a historical moment in television. I'm also going to post up a picture of Wesley's tremendously terrible sweater. I think it's going to be like an evolving slideshow of all of his bad sweaters. But I'm going to post that up at thetngpodcast.com. And if you have any questions, if there's anything that we missed, let us know. info@thetngpodcast.com. PJ, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you very much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, we would love to have you back again. I would say if you have like some real special episodes that are close to your heart, like we want you back so you can talk about them.
Well, in 5 years, if you ever talk about Star Trek Insurrection, I will argue about how that's a good movie day in and day out.
Oh, you're on, buddy. You're on.
I love that movie.
Ooh, Shereese is like cringing and she's already breathing heavy. Like she's already.
I like it too. I like all the movies, but like I just get very passionate about some of those storylines and what they decide to do with some of the characters, and then some of the choices that they made in Picard to fix some of them. But that's a different conversation. That's a conversation for when we're done with the series. So we got some time.
It's Picard versus Salieri. It's amazing.
Well, PJ, we love having you. We always love seeing you. Next week, we are reviewing episode 6, Lonely Among Us, and I've got some thoughts. So we'll revisit that when we get to that episode. All right, guys, we will check in with you next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks for geeking out with us.
Bye.
Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.